I guess we're live. It surprised me there. That happened a little quicker than usual. What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's staying warm. Everybody getting snowed in and iced in. I guess the weather predictions have changed a little bit. We're not going to get the massive amount of snow we were going to get, but instead we're going to get ice. So that's even worse. I'd rather dealt with 20 inches of snow than 10 inches of snow and 1 inch of ice. So hopefully our power will stay on, and that's going to be the worst case scenario, I guess. It turn into ice for us. That's usually the worst here in Kentucky. Lots of trees, and we have a lot of overhead power still here. We don't have all underground. It gets taken out pretty quickly. Yeah, not good, not good. It's cold. It's cold down here in the basement, man. It's usually pretty decent down here, warmish. But man, tonight I know it's been this cold before, but yeah, you on time. Let's see, brother. Clint may be a little bit late getting here. He's got some stuff he had to do. They may not be able to get here in time. But hopefully he'll get here in time. In which case, bear with me, and I'll try to get to as many questions as I can. It was great having Alan here this past week, Wednesday or Tuesday, I guess. Had a great show, and I do apologize to everybody. We were going to try to do introductions for Alan, and then do some questions that I wanted to ask him, and I keep getting repeats on, and wanted a different perspective, and maybe hear it from a different person, and so a lot of the questions we addressed is helped a lot of people as far as cuts and some of the important things. We can cover a lot of the easier topics, but I wanted to get him talking about cuts and things of that nature, and I do apologize for not being able to have time to do the one-on-one, but when he gets on a roll and he's talking about the topic, and we had a really good hour and a half discussion. It was or 2.5 hour discussion. It was really good. So um, we kept him here late. Wait, maybe 3.5 hours, 8, 9, 10, 11. We kept him here to about 11:30. So 3.5 hours, man. That's that's a record, I guess. Um, but yeah, it was a really good session. I hope a lot of you mark that in your favorites, and it be something you probably want to go back and listen to a time or two, and try to take in all that information as much as you can. Very important information. There's a lot of intermediate and some advanced stuff in there for people to absorb, and learn a little bit more about cuts and what's in. Heads aren't the great evil. Like I guess if you're drinking moonshine or white dog, I'm going to try to talk. I'm not able to see. Oh, Clint is here. Awesome. Good to see you, brother. Must have just rolled in. Yeah, when he gets on a roll, I'm not going to stop him. I want to get all that out there for everybody to listen to and absorb. We can deal with the individual questions, and we're going to have him back. He'll be back probably mid-February sometime. So definitely be great to have him back and to go over some more questions and stuff. Will be awesome. But let me get these links out, and I'll make sure I got that. Thank you. Yeah, we'll deal with all that. Yeah, I just couldn't. I do apologize. I can't apologize enough for not having. We just didn't have time, to deal with everybody's individual questions, and it's important to us. That's why I really want to address some of those. If some of you guys still have questions, we'll go through and look for some of them, and ask them next time he's here, or we can try to address them here as we And I hope I got a chance to watch Wayne and Amanda on this past yesterday. Yeah, that was a great podcast too. A lot of good information. So that's great. See more and more educational stuff coming out there. I love it. dig it, man, I dig it. Well, he's a very knowledgeable guy too. I love having him and Amanda both on there, and we'll see more of that. Alright, let me see, where am I at here? Alright, let's get these links out, then we can chat. Hopefully, we won't go down. The last time, during the last podcast, I guess on Alicia's side, it went down, and during, Wayne and Amanda's, went down. So I'm not sure what's Facebook's got going on with that, but we're gonna have to deal with that. I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna have to send a little message and find out what's going on with that and try to appeal Fieldbillies. Hopefully it's temporary. And we reiterate, um, we can't talk about certain topics on here. They're pretty sensitive about certain topics. I know that a lot of you, we can talk a little bit about, diffusing marijuana or something like that. That's not an issue. It's legal in many states. It's a legal thing to talk about, but illicit drugs and things like that, we'll have to limit or minimize or eliminate any discussion of it. We don't want to get banned, and we don't want anybody else to get banned either. And we want to be able to send out the message and help keep people safe, and keep the hobby safe and make it enjoyable for everybody. And we'll be able to do that if we get banned. So we just have to keep on topic and keep pushing on. There's plenty of places on Facebook and YouTube and social media of other sports X and everything else to talk about, those topics. If that's what you want to talk about, there's plenty of platforms and forums to talk about that. We can talk about the weather though. So how's everybody's weather forecast changed? Ours is, a lot of people said it's for the better because it's less snow, but yeah, no, it's not better because it's more ice, and it's probably going to be worse than what it was. So hopefully that won't be the case. But I'm afraid we're going to have some ice storms. Southern Kentucky and southeastern Kentucky are going to have it worse. I think central and north are not going to be quite as bad, but from the forecast I saw, it's changed over from a huge snow event to a snow ice combo, which is not good. And if that's the case, hopefully we'll have internet Tuesday, and most importantly, hopefully power doesn't go out. If the power goes out, then next thing you know, plumbing lines are freezing and bad stuff. You gotta hate to have to break out my generator and go through all that. I've done it before. We had an ice storm in here probably about 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, closer, probably 20 years ago. And we lost power for like a week. And I had to keep the generator going, and it was cold. And go out a few times a day and gas up the generator. And that was a pain in the ass. I had to build a little generator house. I need to do that now. I really should have already done it. And because can't totally enclose them because it builds up too much heat with the exhaust, but you got to cover them, keep them out of the weather. That's what I have. It's a Honda generator, I think. Maybe it's a bridge. I can't remember. It's been around for a long time. It's been a 20-year-old generator and still works, so that's good. Hadn't had it running in a while though. I probably should have taken it out this past fall. I need to this summer or spring and take it out and get it powered up and change the oil in it and run it a little while because it definitely Gonna need it. It's been so long. Should have done it this past week, knowing this storm was coming. But I thought it was just gonna be snow, so I didn't think it'd be a big issue because it's just snow. It's not so bad, but in Kentucky, we've got so many trees and power lines running through it, and grid and it gets knocked out of certain areas. It takes it out of a lot of other areas. We still have a lot of overhead. Be nice if it's all underground. It's work on getting all our electric underground. Cold, cold, cold. So hope everybody's having a good weekend. Think it's got all the links shared and all that good stuff. Let's start from the beginning here. What's going on, Scott? Yeah, he's first in today. That's awesome. Good to see you. What's going on, Mikey? Hell yeah, party on. Let's just get this party started right. Old Santa needs a shot. Yeah. Honey liquor. Thank you, Mike. Oh, what's your Mike? I think that's pretty much called shots. Isn't that what you said? Yes, he is. He is. He's a wealth of knowledge. Uh, he's been doing it, since he's a kid, like I did. And he's done a long time. It's kind of in his family, and it's now his profession, his life's passion. So he studied it his whole life, you know, and learned a lot, and quite a bit more than me, as far as some of the science and some of the history. That's what I want to pick his brains. His knowledge about the history and knowing all the different distillates they make in all the different countries and uh, very interesting. That's what I'm into now. Learning, all countries, the names of the distillates and how they make it, the apparatuses they use to make it, all of that stuff. So definitely, I watch his videos. His reenactments are awesome. If y'all haven't seen those, you have to check them out. Him and the Wolf guy, his first name. Usually, I'm thinking first. I can't remember the last, but yeah, they do this reenactment, and they reenacted the making of absinthe from, I guess, late 1800s. It's awesome, pretty cool. Dressed up in period clothes. And what's going on, Stephen? Good to see you, brother. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I like hearing, different, way of explaining things. I've kind of learned it a certain way, and he can talk about the same topics and explain it in a different wording, and hopefully it makes it a little bit better, easier to understand maybe than I can explain it. Sometimes I stumble on my words, and I will get things out the way I want to. I guess that comes with age, but yeah, it's good to and reinforce, a lot of what I've been teaching and talking about stuff. It's really good. Run that corn and wheat. Awesome, brother. Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, good when you about to hit the tails. You can just open it up and let her rip and capture those tails, for the next. That's something Alan was talking about as well. A lot of people waste those. It's a lot of good alcohol in those tails that are easily separated. I figured you must just I didn't get a message from you. So I just walked straight into the PC. What's going on, O'Shane? Good to see you, brother. What's going on, Mr. Curtis? Good to see you, my friend. Uh-oh. to add sugar to all your grain disaster. Oh hell. Well, it happens, you know. It's gotta we gotta rewind and find out what happened, you know, where did it go wrong? And so tell us your process, tell us what you did, and maybe we can figure out where things go wrong. Sometimes, you know, the enzymes, you know, they can be dated, you know, if you've had them for a while, there's a lot of different things that can happen, but, maybe things didn't get gelatinized all the way, maybe, you know, a lot of different things can happen. Um, so tell us what happened and tell us your process, Pat, and is that fight is Patty fighting tonight? What? Let's see. Oh yeah, it is tonight. Gaethje versus Pimblett. So who do y'all have in that fight? And when does it start? I don't know. I think I think if they were both in their prime, maybe Gaethje's going to be a winner. But Gaethje's getting a little bit older, and Patty's in his prime. It looked a little more cut and in shape than Gaethje. You know, so I might have to go with maybe with Patty on the ground with the submission. That's, you know, if he gets him down, he wraps him up. It's all over. The old Scouser. He's that's good. 2 quarts on 2 gallons. That's about, you know, that's fine. That's an eighth. That's about right. You know, that's about what you can expect. Pretty good. How did it taste, brother? And no, I didn't see it. I'm sorry, but I wanted to engage Alan, and I wasn't able to. You know, I saw a few questions, but you know, I pretty much had geared what I wanted to ask and get some of the taken care of. You know, some intermediate stuff. Um, well, you know, we do cover a lot of basics in here, and I did want to kind of touch on some more intermediate and advanced stuff while we had Alan with us. And so I do again apologize for not getting those, and I apologize if I fall behind in my answering here too. But we'll try to address everything. Me and Clint both try to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. And I just, you know, when Alan gets thrown and talking and stuff and engaged, I just want to kind of keep that going and perpetuate it and get the information out there, you know, instead of, you know, breaking it up and interrupting him with questions and I know how I am when I get on a roll and I'm talking about something, you know, I want to get it out there before somebody interrupts me because a lot of times I'll forget my train of thought, especially, you know, getting older. So I didn't want to do that with him. You know, basically just run with it and you know, talk about each topic as we talk about it. Oh yeah, it happens always. There's always, you know, it happens to everybody, man. And it happened to me a lot when I used the powder. You know, the powder was very frustrating. The alpha amylase powder, and if that's what you're using, it's very sensitive, very temperature sensitive, difficult to work with. I usually increase my corn because of it. You know, I use closer to 3 pounds instead of the two and a quarter that I like to use. Um, So you know, I had to increase my corn to get the, you know, enough, you know, starches converted with it to get a decent gravity. You know, of course, the gravity, you know, it's hard to tell because you get those sugars out of this, you know, out of the corn, but they're not broken down and converted, so they're still reading as sugars, they're just fermentable sugars. Right? So that's that's why a lot of people we use iodine to see if there's still starches left or if those starches have been broken. Sounds wonky. Yeah. I'm getting feedback from somewhere. Here it is. Is my sound? Am I sounding okay? Let me know. Is my audio okay? Because I know in game, people have been saying my audio is not real good in the game I play too. So I've got a new mic. I got to get all this set up. It's got a USB-C. I didn't see that when I ordered it, but I don't have a USB-C port on the PC I'm using right now. So I could get an adapter, but I've got a new PC I'm building, so I'm just going to put it on it and use that. Yeah, we've got about an inch. It's 14 here, and we got about an inch of snow, really light. But we're going to probably get about 6 to 10 inches instead of the 10 to 20 that they were calling for. But we're going to get a lot of ice with it, so that's not good. Yeah, it's time to turn up the heat, hunker down, throw another log on the fire, and talk about moonshine. That'll warm me up. That moonshine warmed me up pretty good right there. Oh no, man. Damn, we're gonna be down there Monday and midweek. We're supposed to. We were. I don't know. It's changing. Get a little warm front coming up out of the south. So tomorrow, some places in Kentucky, you're going to be actually in the 30s instead of plunging into the, single digits like they were originally thinking. Absolutely, Mikey. Anybody that's in the cold weather that's not in an area that traditionally gets it, or if your power goes out, definitely trickle those faucets because you don't want to add plumbing and flood damage to your power outage and the headaches of that for sure. Minus 37 this morning and a balmy -5 now. Well, I don't feel so bad anymore. I'm feeling a little hot now. Damn. Yeah, I couldn't handle that shit. Couldn't handle that. Sugar sand prospecting. Damn, that's cold, bro. So you like to do a little gold prospecting, man. I always had a passion for digging up treasures and did a little panning for gold. And we'd go to there's a place in the Carolinas that you can dig and pan for gemstones, go gemstone mining. So we did a little bit of that with my daughter when we were younger, and as a camp and do that. It was a lot of fun. They got emeralds and rubies and sapphires. It's pretty cool. Yes, that's just crazy cold, man. Damn, bro. Now we know why you make that moonshine. Damn. Oof. Man, it's cold. It's cold down here in this basement. It's the coldest day yet this winter. I am cold, and I've got a sweatshirt and a shirt on underneath it. Yeah, just rub it in, Clint. Keep rubbing it in, buddy. Yeah, he's down there in the warmth. Is it gonna get that close? Damn. Well, it wasn't. We'd we'd have to spend as far as gasoline. It's a gasoline. It's not a gas generator. It's natural gas generators are probably pretty reasonable in certain areas of the country. I'd say natural gas generators would be very reasonably priced here because gas is so cheap here, and be nice if I lived in Eastern Kentucky. I could put a little trailer up on my dad's property and plumb my own gas to it. We got a couple of gas wells in Eastern Kentucky. They don't pay a whole lot, but only they pay a little bit. In the wintertime, you make a couple hundred a month out of them. They're not big producers, but they've been around since the 70s, so they produced a long time, but not a whole lot. But they don't even tap it, and use it year round. It's just November, December, January, February, pretty much 3 or 4 months out of the year. You get a few $100 check, couple $100 a month. I mean, it helps, but if if you live there, you can get it have it pumped into your house for nothing, and heat your house, generator, and everything else. Live off the grid that way. What's going on, brother? Good to see. Good to see. I'll stand warm down there. Make sure your plumbing's dripping, brother. If it gets down them single digits, for sure. What's going on, JJ? Good to see you, brother. Nah, 2 feet of snow. Well, y'all used to that, Hell, that's nothing new for you all. But for us, it's a huge weather event, that we don't we're not well equipped for. We've had some big snows here before, but it's been a couple decades since we've had anything major like that. We had some ice storms in here, a little over 20 years ago, close to 20 years ago, and maybe a little over. And they were pretty bad. Like I said, we were without power for over a week, and it was pretty tough. Having to keep that generator. I didn't run it all the time. It wasn't. It got kind of warm right after it. Thank God. I mean, when I say warm, it's in the 40s, right? Which is fine. Don't have to worry about the pipes freezing and stuff. But at night, it still dipped into the 30s, so it was pretty cold, but not single digit cold. But just having to try to keep the generators going, so many minutes out of every hour to keep the refrigerators cold, so I didn't run it 24/7. I'd turn it off for an hour and then back on and regulated it that way, and just to keep the refrigerators and keep the food fresh and from spoiling, and had a big old freezer full of deer meat and fish and everything else. Yeah, yeah, mine's I think it's a 6500 watt, which is, it's enough to run the heater, and there though we had gas heat, so it wasn't that big a deal. We didn't have to have the generator running the heater. I don't know if it'd run the heat pump here. I doubt it. We wouldn't be able to run much anything else. So, but there we had a gas heater, and it worked out real well. It was just for the whole house. It was just like normal. I just had it wired directly into the box. Had the box turned, breaker off, and wired it directly into the panel, and ran it that way. And it was just, we had all our lights and everything. I even ran a couple extension cords to my neighbors. Even the grumpy old man that couple houses up, just to keep the refrigerators, from spoiling their food from spoiling. It's pretty strict with him, and he didn't like it. He wanted to plug in heaters and everything else. I'm like, no, I'll unplug it right over here at the house. Not happening, bro. I'm not gonna have you, maxing out my generator. I'm doing this so you don't lose all your food in your freezer and your refrigerator. But as far as heat, you just gonna have to bundle up. He wasn't too happy, but you know, Saturday I gotta unplug it. Make the choice. Try to help people, and they, you know, one gallon for 6 hours. That's pretty efficient. Mine was running about probably about 4 gallons every 8 hours. I'd have to fill up the tank about every 8 hours, about 3 times a day. So, and that was running it constant. And then I cut back after a few days of that. I realized, we just don't need this constantly. We're gonna have to, you know, um, turn it off for periods of time, and just kind of regulate it that way. So But yeah, when I was running 24/7 straight, and then you'd every couple of days you'd have to, when you run them like that every few days, you have to change the oil and stuff in them. When it's running constant, so I'd have to stop, drain the oil, and refill it, and do all that. But yeah, I was running about 4 gallons, a little over 4 probably every 8 hours. So it wasn't. It's not that mine wasn't that efficient. That's pretty efficient. Maybe it's diesel. I don't know. That's awesome. How much is it though? I don't know. I went with the reducer because 2 inch is very common, predominant, and I just say spend the money on that reducer is on everything else that comes after it, right? So I just bought the reducer to go from 2.5 to 2 off that bever. And it gives you, tapers and gives you some vapor velocity coming off the pot. So that's cool. But yeah, the 2 inch is very common and a lot more reasonably priced. But I mean, you're going to have to come down to 2 um, anyway, so you might as well just do it coming off the pot, JJ. How much was it, just out of curiosity? Uh-oh. So my audio is bad, huh? That's what they were saying last night. So daggone it. Well, have to maybe it's closer. So maybe it's a little better that way, a little closer to me. Let me go into settings here and see if I can make some adjustments. Audio check. Nice, kind of. Let's see this mic volume. Maybe that help any. Let's see if that helps any. Hopefully that helps some. Leaning, you can see my ugly ass face a little closer. But is that helping? I'm gonna scroll down to see. Is that helping any? Shit, I was way behind anyway. Oh, it's work. My audio is working fine for you, sugar. That's good. Well, hopefully I just turned it up a little bit. Hopefully that'll help. Yeah. First batch of sour mash is going on 2 weeks to work off. It's almost ate all the oyster shells I put in there. Yeah, I mean that shows that they're working. It's keeping it buffered. We talked about that, and I guess Wayne and Amanda talked about that a little bit as well. Kind of reinforcing what we were talking about. Pickle and lime being the preferred method to do it, but it's best just to use the oyster shells and just let nature take its course, because it's going to tend to get acidic, and but yeah, in this cold weather it's going to take longer, that's for sure. Your refrigerator ice machine tastes like pool water, or heavy chlorinated. Okay, enzymes were new. Certain the temp in the cooler was too low, 175. I left it in for 4 hours. Initial gravity of 0. Wow, that's crazy, man. That's um, yeah, 175 is a little low, but I mean, for 4 hours, you'd think it would have broken down some of the starches. But yeah, it needs to be a little bit. Actually, you can gelatinize corn at 175. It just takes longer. Um, in 4 hours, I don't know. I had to look at a chart, but that's you know not out of that's for that temperature. That seems pretty good, Pat. I don't know. Initial gravity is 0. Now we're sure we're using the right hydrometer and everything, right? It's the triple scale, not a proofing hydrometer, because proofing, it's you should have had something though. It's crazy. You should have had some kind of reading on there. Hmm. What should you start with? Corn liquor, blue flame with tea and candy canes, or Genesee? I would just start with the basic corn liquor, and just keep it simple, keep it cheap. Um, gelatinize your corn, cook it 185, 90 uh, for the hour and a half, 90 minutes to 2 hours. And then, and add your amylase to it. And they were, Amanda and them were talking about last night that, you don't have to wait. And Clint's talked about this as well in the past. You don't have to wait until your corn's gelatinized to add your amylase, right? The high temp amylase. I do because I'm generally adding really hot boiling water, and that high temp tends to denature at about 190. So I don't want to lose any efficacy from that. So I like to see my corn gelatinized. I like to see, um, the consistency of it, and I want to make sure that it's getting good and gelatinized before I go ahead and add that. But when you go with a heavy grain bill, like I was talking about earlier, going with 3 pounds like I did when I used the powdered amylase. I don't need to do that now that I'm using the high temp liquid, but it's definitely something I like seeing my corn gelatinized first, and then adding that and watching it thin out and going through that whole process, and seems to work pretty well for me that way. I kind of gotten used to it. Uh, Farm Solutions, that's definitely good stuff. Then it's definitely um, oh, drinking it. All right. Uh, well, let's go back and see. I thought you were talking about making it. I still go for I like it corn liquor, but Genesee's pretty good too. Well, I'm going to have for my new mic, I'm going to either get an adapter, but I got a new PC that I'm building, and it's got a USB-C port in it, so high speed USB. So I'm going to be pretty much probably using that for streaming on. So it'll be my gaming rig that I'm building. So it should be pretty good, but hopefully it'll be built by Tuesday. I had to get my USB drive. My Windows is on DVD. I didn't know it, but all these new PCs they don't use DVDs anymore. Because DVDs have like an 8 gig limitation. Even the dual layer ones now, everything's going on these little thumb drives. Man, this out here can take place of 20 DVDs or DRWs, whatever. And so most of the new PCs, they're not even. Most people don't use DVDs anymore. They're just having these, and I guess in the cars and stuff, the new cars, I guess they got a USB port. You just plug in your thumb drives, and you could have pretty much, if you got a big, huge terabyte or whatever thumb drive, you could have about every song ever written on there. Man, it's crazy. You know, you can have thousands and thousands of songs on those things, man. It's cool as shit, ain't it? To imagine the technology, man. If you'd have told us this 30, 40 years ago, we'd have said that's here. It's never going to happen. You know, I could hold something in my fingers like this, or a watch, right? That could hold pretty much almost every song ever written. It's just insane. What's going on, Carpenter? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're staying warm up there. Brr. Bragging liquor. I like that bragging liquor. I might take a little snort of it. A hort, I guess they used to call it snort and a hort. Yeah, I liked it oat. It's good. Corn juice from the stalks. Yeah, they were talking about that last night. You know, it's if you have a cane press, you can definitely run your corn stalks through it and get you some corn juice, and you know that'd be good to ferment. It's also be good in your probably be good in your infusers. You know, mixed with some corn, regular sweet corn. You know, and blend it up. I don't know if making corn molasses. No, I've not heard anybody doing that. You know, be something to try. That's something unique, and you know, I never thought about it. But yeah, I would say you could probably refine it and reduce it down and get some corn sugars. What one thing you have to really be careful doing when you do, you know, caramelize sugar. A lot of times, if it starts getting dark on you, you're taking it from more of a simple sugar to a complex sugar, and it's kind of hard. Sometimes it can be difficult to convert back to simple again. Uh, so that's what one of the things when you're making a simple syrup that you have to really watch out for and keep your temperatures just right, or you'll start to caramelize your sugar and turn it yellow and brown. And once it caramelizes, you instead of actually making it more simple, you're actually making it more complex, and you're actually rebonding a lot of these molecules together and making it more complex again, and making polysaccharides out of the oligosaccharides. So you'll definitely want to go slow, you know, and try not to, you know, caramelize them. Yeah, buddy, I'm ready. I'm telling you. You know, Ann keeps saying, yeah, it's pretty warm in Florida right now. You know, we could be living down there, but it's like, man, it's just costs are so much more down there. You know, we got it so good here. You know, got a nice place, low house payment. I bought it many years ago when the prices were down, and the interest rates were down, and but she's got a house down there, and you know we can move in. But I don't know. I like it up here. You know, it's cheap. Everything's, you know, got all my ducks are in order here. You know, everything's just working. I've got spent a lot of time getting everything ironed out and just right. You know, and I thought of moving down there. Oh, it's warmer up there than it is here. Man, it's like 12 or 13 here right now. Let's see. 13 degrees at 7. Let's see, man. Huh. Yep. Let's read all that later. Admin chat going on. Militia. I'll deal with that later. Shit, I can't believe it's warmer in Canada than it is right here. Damn, that's crazy. Got down to 50. Oh my goodness, shiver me timbers. I got a 5-gallon box of expired blue raspberry syrup from a buddy that works at Taco Bell. Will be used my next batch. Oats, corn, nut spice, ginger. Will also use sugar's thoughts. Sounds good. I would try to convert the corn like we talk about and get all the sugars that you can out of the corn, gelatinize it and convert that. And I would recommend using that syrup in the infusion process as much as the mash. If you have an infuser, I would save it and use it there, or maybe even some post flavoring with it. If you really want that flavor to carry out. If you don't get a good conversion, it wouldn't hurt, to add a little bit of that syrup to bring up your gravity if you wanted to, and to give your mash a little bit of that flavor as well. But I wouldn't just use it all. I would try to get as much sugar as I could from the corn and the nuts. I would add the spices at the end of fermentation. No need in adding those; they don't contribute to a fermentation. In fact, a lot of spices will inhibit yeast, will stress yeast. We know cinnamon, has antimicrobial properties that don't necessarily agree with the yeast. And I don't know about ginger, but spices in general, I would add those later or during the actual distillation process, like in a gin, and make a little gin basket with them or something like that. Or even steep with them after. Those the rules are out the window anymore as far as everything has to be done pre-drop. Things are changing. People's opinions on it are changing. They don't care if it's post flavored. They don't care if you steep in spices. You don't have to do it before the drip. Used to the bragging rights were all in. I managed to carry this flavor forward, through all the distillation process. And people are like, well, why did you fight that uphill battle when you could have just, done it afterwards? And like, good question. Why did I? To keep it clear. Okay, so I don't mind if my distill has a little red color to it if I have that flavor. So a lot of drinking habits have changed. Bourbon's kind of losing favor. The younger generation don't mind colored drinks. They don't mind flavored drinks. They don't mind neutral spirits with flavors. And to be honest, neither do I. It's I like a lot of fruity drinks. That have fruit post flavored in it. It's got a lot more flavor. I like a true brandy, but let's face it, it's which is better. I mean, for me, I mean, a lot of the post flavored stuff just tastes better, right? I mean, and it's so much easier. Yeah, I knew what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, it does sound good. Yeah, that raspberry syrup and being expired, as a syrup. I mean, yeah, I'd get all that I could, and I wouldn't be a bit afraid to post flavor with it and use it for infusion. And like I said, if you want to, bump up your gravity a little bit with it, we can do that. But I definitely try to convert that corn and oats and get as much starch out of that and sugars out of those as you can. That way you won't have to use as much and you can save some of that. But I do want to find out what the issue was, and let's resolve Pat's issues. And I mean, if you do it inside the house, room temperature, Uh, like I say, if you have a space heater, like one of the oil filled radiators, like I've got, you can set your mash barrel, right next to that, and they work just fine. Keep something between it and the floor so it doesn't get that coldness from the floor. A lot of coldness transfers that way. But I just keep mine next to this little oil filled radiator, man, and I can do 3 40-gallon barrels full, um, 45, 42-gallon blue barrels. I can sit there right in the middle of them and do three, and it keep them all just perfectly warm. But if you got the cooler, like we talk about, or something insulated, like Clint's talking about, your fermenter, uh, or just keeping it, next to the heaters. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds interesting, man. That definitely sounds good. Yeah, man, I'm worried about it too, Curtis. It's gonna be bad, man. We're looking at the same. It was gonna be all snow, and now it's gonna be mixed with ice, and that's not good. In 2021, yeah, it wasn't too long ago. Ours was close to I don't know, maybe 2006 or something like that. I have to let me Google that real bad. 2009, yeah. It was a bad one. Yeah, I was thinking it was about 20 years ago. Not quite. Wow, that's crazy, man. That's unbelievable. Um, Definitely something not right. I mean, I guess you didn't get it out of the corn. Get it gelatinized out of the corn. And converted. So I'm at a loss, brother. But I mean, sometimes we just gotta, you know, grin and bear it. Just throw some sugar on it, and there's nothing wrong with having to add the sugar. I mean, it's still going to be good. It's going to be like an old thin mash like I used to run all the time. So I mean, it's not all lost, and it'll be okay. But it's a shame that you didn't get it converted, went through all the trouble and all that. It'll be a little hotter than normal. Won't be quite as smooth, but it'll still be good. Uh, yeah, it's yeah, definitely, work on the process, and next time, make sure you get those temperatures up there and good, and make sure your corn is fresh, and the enzymes coming from Firm Solutions, if they're new, they definitely good. They don't sell anything old and bad. Um, just use them at the right temperatures, 185, and hold, at 185, 190s when they start denaturing them. So, you don't want to, pour boiling water on top of them, because they'll start to denature on you a little bit. May not take them completely out, but will reduce their efficacy, and but yeah, we definitely got to work on that process. There's something not right, because even if the alpha leached them out, and you use the glucose as well, yeah, make sure your pH in your water starting water. A lot of people think you wait till, yeast pitching time to adjust the pH. No, you should adjust the pH of your water that you're converting with. So you want it at around 5.3, 5.6, enter in that range is fine. Because it does help in the conversion. But yeah, you should have gotten something, Pat. Geez, that's crazy. And also, there's hard to say. What temperature were you testing your hydrometer at? And did you? There's temperature adjustments that you have to make. But yeah, it should have gotten some kind of reading. Running a sugar wash on day 14, slow fermenting, but being patient. The cold definitely doesn't help. Yeah, it slows everything down. Any advice on removing the solids without adding anything that will change the flavor, affect it? What kind of yeast are you using? And did you use the oyster shells? And have you been checking your pH? With sugar washes, yeah, we definitely want to try to use the oyster shells. But the solids, they'll settle out to the bottom. The only solids you'll have is flocculation of the yeast. So it's just going to be pretty much dead yeast holes. And did you use a nutrient? And is that what's contributing to your bed that you're talking about? Always, if you don't have any nutrients, you can always boil up some yeast or bran flakes. Excellent. And if you like raisins and the flavor of raisin, you can, throw some raisin bran in there. Raisins will help soften it up, give it some good flavor and stuff, and maybe add some, micronutrients and stuff that'll be beneficial. But yeah, the bran flakes do real well with feeding the yeast, and so will dead yeast holes. Um, so, but with sugar washes, they're a little more temperamental, and because of the generally working off faster. So yeah, pickling them works real well. It's calcium hydroxide. Yeah, I had to check that. It's not calcium carbonate. That's what the oyster shells are. Pickling lime is calcium hydroxide. Excuse me. Now the hydroxide will add, oxygen to your mash, so it will kind of kick it into a reproductive cycle, which is, not ideal, but if you have to add it, it's better than stressing it with the low acid. And when we talk about stressing yeast, and when Alan and I were talking about Alan and I and Clint were talking about yeast dressing for flavors, that's kind of that's something we don't want to do intentionally at this point in the game. That's something that's advanced, and it's basically when you get your mash to a certain point where it's exact, right? We manage all the different variables, and we keep everything finely tuned like an experiment. All the temperatures are exact, all the pHs are exact. Everything is exact and kept within a certain deviation. Um, and you get really, really tight consistency. That's when you can start tweaking things and getting certain notes. And when we talk about intentionally stressing, and it's usually done gradually, to get con congeners that will add flavor and not take away. So, but it's kind of it's an experimental process, and it's something that it's kind of advanced. Um, Done a lot in rum making and other distillates, but it's it's something you don't want to do intentionally getting started, right? When we talk about stress and yeast, we don't want to, because generally it adds, bad flavors, and generally the swings until you get it to a fine-tuned process is great. They're large swings, and it's not, once we get it to the point where it's very, very consistent and we can replicate it, exactly, we keep all the variables tight, then you can start experimenting, on doing certain things. And, like we talk about, cinnamon, I mentioned earlier, adding that spice in, some people, do that to create certain flavors, but that's something that you will have to just, in a small way to get a certain, stress and a flavor out. It's not really something that I would experiment as we're getting our feet wet, right? So generally, when we talk about stress and yeast, it's not a good thing, right? So, but because they generally do create off flavors, and not good ones. 10 degrees here. I know, man. It's fruit flies are bad, man. They get bad, and they. I know. I've dealt with them. You got to get the fly tape and put it up. What I did, what I found my most success with was getting cider vinegar and putting it in a jar, and with a little bit of fruit, and I put like a funnel in it in the top of the jar, and they could fly down into the jar and get into it, and they had trouble flying up and out of the hole of the funnel, and they just get in there and get in the liquid and drowned. And it makes a pretty good little trap. So if you get a tall jar, put your funnel in there, tape it, and then just pour in your liquid, they'll crawl down in there, and they can't. It's hard for them to fly out. You might get one or two fly out every once in a while, but you'll see how many you trap, and you'll get a bunch that way. I got rid of most of mine that way, and it works. They like it. You can put a little bit of liquor in there too, a little brandy or something, a little hedge, and they love the smell of it. They love that rotten fruit smell. Can't resist it. But put your little vinegar in there with it, they'll be all over it. That's it. All liquor is bragging liquor. It's like my watermelon turned out. That definitely ain't bragging. Unless you just want to brag that you made some liquor. But yeah, it's definitely wasn't nothing to brag about. Probably the worst thing I've made in 20 years. That's the worst I made since I scorched it last time. Been a long time. Knock on wood. pH good. Temp drop. Temps really, this time of year, anything, 9 times out of 10, anybody talks about having issues uh, in stalls and stuff. It's usually the temperature, because during spring and summer and fall, when the temperatures in the 80s and outside, not many people complain about stalling. You're getting other issues and other things. Unless, of course, it's a sugar wash, then it's, lack of nutrients or dropping pH. But anytime you especially get this cold, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a temperature thing, and it's yeast dependent, so you can adjust your yeast. You're going to get some different flavors for sure. But in the winter months, you can use your wine and champagne yeast. And EC1118 is a good one. It's a champagne yeast that really likes cooler temps, right? In the high 60s, low 70s. So in the wintertime, you can adjust, use that instead. And then in the summertime, you can switch back over to your Deity and your bread yeast and all the other stuff, which Quebeckies and others that like a Quebec, that like a little warmer, fermentation temperatures. So, adjusting your yeast to the temperatures, sometimes might be a good idea to switch. But that Lalvin EC1118 it's a pretty good yeast to have on hand for stuck fermentations, for colder temperatures. Again, not the best. A lot of people hate it. Oh, it's boring. It doesn't have character. Yada 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 yada. Yeah, that's true. But it also is good at about everything. It's good at handling pH swings. It's good at temperature swings. It's good, so, and it handles high, alcohol. So it's pretty good. It has its uses and for stuck fermentations as well. So right, yeah. It doesn't when you're clarifying it, it doesn't have to be clear like a wine. I know a lot of winemakers, were fixated on clarity and clean and clear. Um, and Alan and we talked about that this past week. It doesn't have to be perfectly clear. A little bit milky is fine. You just don't want a lot of sediments in it, right? Depending on what your steel is. Now some steels can handle that if they're jacketed or if you're double boiling or doing different methods. It's not a big an issue, but with a regular pot still like most of us are using, yeah, you're going to want to keep most of those out. So right now is a perfect time to, if you want to, you can do what's called cold crashing. So once your fermentation is done, you can set it out in the cold. Don't let it freeze, of course, but you can set it out in the cold. And of course, if it freezes, you just have to pull the ice out, and it pretty much, increases your alcohol content anyway. So that's not all bad. Um, but it'll also help clarify it, and cold crashing um, helps thin it out and get it cleared out, and drives a lot of sediments down. So, but yeah, just rack them off and get everything off that little yeast bed in the bottom, if you will. Probably in a sugar wash, you're going to have just a yeast bed. So just siphon it off. Keep your siphon tube about an inch off that, and once it gets down to a certain point, you can real gradually tilt it and get the last of the clear juice off there, and you can leave the dead yeast in the bottom and add some distilled water to it, and rinse it, and pour it into something, let it drain, and keep all that sediment, for the next fermentation. We talked about that as well. There's good yeast in there, and there's good yeast nutrients in there, so you can use that for your next sugar wash, and you won't have to worry about using any yeast, and you won't have to worry about whether or not you have enough nutrients in it. So but do add the oyster shells if you didn't, and you can, yeah, just carry those over and do it with the next ones. And there we go. Go ahead, stop about cold crashing. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes when you cold crash, it's called cold filtering, and it'll cause some of the oils in it to coagulate basically, and yeah, you can skim them off or strain them out. Yeah. Yeah, if it'll come and go. We'll have warmer days. What's the status of the Waffle House scale? Oh, um, you're gonna have to be more specific, man. I sometimes can't. The status of the Waffle House scale. JJ, I don't know, bro. You're gonna have to tell me what you're talking about. I can't read between the lines on that. 15 minutes pound, not too bad. What's going on, Joe Brown? Oh hell. Damn. Yeah, we had somebody else up there. Our prospector's up there, man. He's in some cold weather too. Damn, man. But you're all set for it, man. You all prepared for that stuff. You probably have 12-inch walls, with insulation, and you all set for that, man. We're just not built for that here, man. Especially in the South, there's lot of uh, lot of plumbing lines are going to freeze. Hey, babe, I don't know if you're done or not. Could you grab me a cola? Thank you, babe. Might take me another shot. I have to wait till that cola gets here, though. Oh yeah. Um, yeah, less less finding at the Waffle House. No Waffle House wrestling. I've got one pretty close by me. I don't go there pretty often though, man. It's yeah, I just hate the thought of paying 15, 12, 15, 20 bucks for a damn breakfast. It's like how much should a couple of sticks of bacon and a couple of eggs and a couple of biscuits actually cost? You think at the store, yeah, $2 a dozen. That's kind of expensive. That's for a couple of eggs. That's not very much, right? Less than 15 cents a piece. 3 pound, 350. Thank you, baby. 350 for a pound of bacon when I buy it on sale. I know a lot of people are like, what? That's how cheap it is here, man. We live in a place where it's very reasonable. I get these big ass 10-pound hams for 6.49, 59 cents a pound. Have 6, 8 bucks. It's a big ass ham. Yeah. I got a freezer full of them, but yeah, I don't know. Don't go out for breakfast much. What's going on, Roy? Good to see you, brother. I'm cold, man, but I'm staying hydrated. Trying to get some of that liquid temp in me. This got to warm me up. Good old honey shine. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I hope we get. I want to get your situation resolved as well, man. It's troubling. Yours and Pat's both. I want to make sure that we figure out what in the process is failing and what we can do to remedy it. You know, um, I don't know with Pat's. That's just a mystery. He's still 175 is a little bit low, and but the amylase, it's warm enough for the amylase to activate and work. I mean, it does have a scale that it's effective at. 190, it starts denaturing. 185 is a good temperature for that high temp alpha. But after a certain temperature, it loses its vigorousness. I guess vigor loses its vigor as it gets cooler. But 175 is not that far off, so it shouldn't have lost that much of its activity from that temperature. And that for 4 hours should have been maybe not enough to free up all the starch in the corn, but it should have freed up enough to get a reading, right? So that's kind of a mystery. It's that's a toughie. It's sometimes we just have to scratch our heads, and wonder where we went wrong. But I just can't. You should have gotten something at those temps, and with because yeah, the Firm Solutions they definitely sending out top notch stuff, and it's definitely going to be fresh. So I don't. It's hard to say. Yeah. I mean, that's true. You can read all you want, read all you want. And that's kind of why we're here. Um, because a lot of times you have to read a whole book to get your questions answered. So where in the book is it going to answer this specific question I have, and that's kind of why we're here. But I can set you up with a step by step, and if you follow the step by step to the T and don't deviate from it, I can almost guarantee you good results. But you have to limit your variables. And those variables are temperature, pH, and efficacy of your yeast and of your enzymes and quality of the materials going into it, the corn and the grains and whatever going into it. But you should, it should be to the point where if you follow everything by the T to the T, you should get some pretty good results, and you should be able to replicate that if you can keep those variables tight, right? Keep that temperature up, and I like these little. It was what's hot up there. Show you. It's just those little tall little radiator, little metal radiators, 2, 4, 6, got little 6 fins, oil filled. Those work great. Sitting next to it, I'll turn my fermenters around. I'll put it right in the middle of 2 or 3 of them, ever how many I got going, whether it's 5 gallons or 40-gallon fermenters, and just turn them. And if they get a little bit warm, I'll keep my thermometer in there and drop it in there and check the temperature of it. And if it gets a little warm, I'll either move them a little bit away from the heater. When it's cold like this, I want my heater to stay on, so I'll just move them a little further away from the heater. And as they cool off, I'll scoot them a little closer and kind of regulate it that way and keep it, pretty tight, as we can for winter, which variables tend to, you know, increase, right? The range, the temp range increases because it's tough. Day and night temps vary, and, the heaters kick them on and off, varies. So it's a little tougher. Um, yeah, I wouldn't use the calcium sulfate. Um, 4.3 is fine. 4.3 is not a bad pH. It's a little bit lower than a starting pH, but 4.3 is fine. It's the low threes and high twos that really, when your yeast start getting stressed, and most of the wine yeast and champagne yeast and stuff, or EC1118 for sure, don't have a bit of problem at 4.3. But yeah, use the oyster shells is the way to go. I don't care. In grain, it's not so important, but it becomes more important like in the wintertime when we increase these ferment times, and increased ferment times generally gives it longer for the acid to drop. And, you know, but with like sugar washes, it drops because of the vigor of the actual process. And when you have a vigorous, fast acting process, you're actually stressing the yeast. And when you're stressing the yeast, it's kicking off all these congeners, bad flavors, and all that. And it's also creating more of the organic acids, right? Butyric acids and other things. As it stresses, a lot of different acids are formulated because of the stress itself. Uh, so, and increasing numbers. So that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of sugar washes crashes, is because the organic acid production increasing due simply to the stress in the yeast. Uh, and that's a natural part of the process, but when you rush it, when it's rushed like that and forced and fast, and then it's amplified, right? But with time also, organic acids will increase over time, which, if it's wine fermentation, that's one thing. It's kind of something that you're shooting for. But um, for a grain that usually takes 3 to 5 days, it's probably not optimal, and it's not something that we prepare for. So having those oyster shells, even in some of your grain fermentations, if you can't keep those temps up and keep your variables tight, you might have to introduce it to those as well in the wintertime. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's kind of neutral flavor. It's not, I wouldn't do it in a wine, because we want wines to kind of get acidic and bitter, and that's expected. And it's a slower fermentation, slower process anyway, cooler temperatures, and it's better to do it that way, because in our wines we want it to ferment slow, and we want the temperatures to be lower and close to the tolerance in the 68 to 72s that the EC1118, a lot of the wine and for champagne yeast, would prefer, versus the higher temp Kyvex and uh, and tequila yeast and daddy yeast and your bread yeast all tend to like a little bit warmer temperatures, right? So yeah, yeah, but 4.3 is not a problem, and I wouldn't adjust for that, especially later in fermentation. You start at 5.3, and if you're halfway through and at 4.3, that's not a problem. But yeah, that's kind of why we're here, so you don't have to watch videos. You can get a lot of great information from watching George and Phil Billy and Alan and a lot of other people, and you can sit and watch them for hours and hours and hours and learn a lot. But it may take hours and hours and hours and hours to find the answer to your question. And I know I get a little bit behind on here, but it's not that long, right? So, but me and Clint can answer your questions here and get to them pretty quickly, and explain things to you in simple terms, and help you get into get your questions answered and get your situations resolved. But we damn sure want to make sure everybody gets their answers resolved. And for those again that ask questions for Alan, I'm gonna go through the podcast before we have him back, and I'm gonna try to look at a lot of your questions and write them down and address those the next time. Or if you're here, you can ask them, but I'll try to write down the ones I'd say we probably have some repeat questions, and some things we may have gone over. You may have asked the question and we didn't touch on it until after you ask it, but hopefully we got a lot of your questions answered. But again, I wanted to kind of just give him free reign, let him go and talk and explain some things, because it's nice to get a fresh voice and a different perspective, and maybe some different aspects brought into it too. Yeah, I just with the sulfur, it's nothing bad about it. It's just the sulfites. You definitely want to try to keep those out. The sulfates, um, yeah, the calcium hydroxide, pickling lime works great. And if you start out with the oyster shells though, uh, I mean they'll just eat away at those as the acids are created. They'll just neutralize themselves by eating away at those. Amanda was talking about the pH buffer stuff that you can buy. I think it's called 5.2, or it's a buffer, and it has a little bit of citric and a little bit of the calcium carbonate in it, and it just helps bring up pH if it's low and drop pH if it's high. Just helps neutralize and keeps it buffered. But oyster shells are a lot cheaper. It's a lot less expensive. If you want to lower the pH, you can add the citric acid, and if you want to, use those, it's best to start with the citric acid to get your water to where you need it to begin with, right? To the 5.3 before you do your conversions, because it will definitely help in your conversions. Just like in converting, when you break the bonds of the sugars, when you invert the sugar, you have to have that acid, to give it, speed up the process. Uh, Same thing with the conversion of the starches. Going on, Mr. Morgan? I ain't had you here. I've done 2 shots already, man, maybe 3. Been waiting on you. It is time to top off the antifreeze. Yeah. But I hope y'all watched that show with that Amanda was on. That was Wayne and Amanda. That was a pretty good show. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I just, what I would do, I just put the insulation underneath it and set it on top of it, really, and just put your heaters there. Just get you a little radiator and put right in the middle of them 40-gallon barrels, 60. It'll keep them all just fine. Works like a charm. And bring them inside. You can't expect to do anything outside in this weather. Got Clint burying barrels over here, man. Yeah. that's definitely underground fermenters, you know. Actually, there are some cultures that do that down in Mexico and stuff. They do that for the temps, keep the temperatures down. And definitely, if you got those black barrels during the summertime, you definitely don't want to leave those out in the sun, man, because it gets so hot. Those barrels, and it'll denature your yeast in a heartbeat, man. It'll kill them off. 22, you're out for 13 days. Yeah, it is rough, man. I think we were over a week. I think we were like 9, 10 days maybe in 2009. It was over a week. I remember that. But I don't remember how many days it was. I don't remember things like that very well. I can't even remember the year. I was thinking it's before 2009, though. I may have to do a little more research on that. I was thinking it was close to 2001, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I was thinking the same. It should float it at zero, even if it's in water, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I keep mine in the fridge too, Cave Daddy. Yep, exactly what you want to do. Yeah, just take it out, let it warm up. I do the same with my yeast. You know, I keep my yeast in the refrigerator, and the bulk yeast you can keep in the freezer. It'll last for several years. And then as you need to use it, just take it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, and kind of let it somewhat thaw. And then when you need to use it, take it out of the refrigerator, let it sit out in room temperature for a few hours, and get to room temp. Helps a lot. And then make a starter out of it as well. We talked about that, putting it in a jar with a little bit of sugar and shaking it up real good. Warm water about 90, 95 degrees, and shake it up real good and oxygenate it real well, and let it, set it in a pot, so when it foams over, which it might, uh, you'll see how active it is, and definitely want to do that. But yeah, the amylase too, let it warm up. Yeah, it will, yeah, it will definitely lose its efficacy. So keep it refrigerated. What's going on, Mike? It's good to see you, brother. What's going on, Glory? Good to see you, man. Yeah, listen everybody up a little bit. Trying to get caught up, so I'm scrolling through. Yeah, you don't want to freeze amylase. No, just your yeast. Yeah, you can freeze your yeast, and it'll keep longer. But the amylase, yeah, you don't want to freeze it. Just keep it in the fridge. And again, when you decide to use it, put it in a little cap. When I like to use a little cap off the cough syrup. It has a little, it's graduated. It's like a little teeny measuring spoon, measuring cup. And it's graduated, so it tells you how much. So it's good little things to keep. They're good for that, for dosing it. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, like 2 liter. Yeah, cut the top off, flip it upside down. They can fly in it. It's harder for them to get out. I just use the funnel, but yeah, that's the way you can do it, man. Works like a charm. I'm that far behind. Hello, Miss Lisa. Yeah, I'll take another shot because you said that. 9:06. Just 24 minutes behind. So I'm sorry. I'm lagging. I'm living in the past, man. Living in the past right now. Yeah, it can. It develops esters, and there's some esters that from stressing it, you can create some florals and some floral. Trying to think of the other notes that you can get out of it. It's gives it a little bit of a sweeter taste, and you can get some more esters out of it. You just get more esters and congeners out of it, which is a good thing if you're going to, make good cuts and barrel age it. Might not be so good if you're making a wine or uh, if you're making some white dog, something that you're going to drink straight, out of the drip. Might not be so good for that, but if you're creating something that's going to create a good ester that you're going to esterify over time and age, definitely good for that. Yeah, my fridge is in the 40s, 48, something like that. Low 40s, low. Yeah, it's like a little minnow trap, isn't it? Well, you can use them bottles for that too. Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about using it to trap fruit flies. You put a little vinegar and a little bit of, rotten peach or something in the bottom, a little fruit that's going bad, mixed with a little vinegar and some heads, and put it in the inverted, 2-liter jug or funnel. I got some funnels that have some pretty small, go down to pretty small, large to small, and it's hard for them to get out. They fly in there and they'll crawl in there and they can't get out. What's going on, Beans? Good to see you, brother. Hope y'all are staying warm over there. Sorry, I'm a little behind. -8. Oh my God, Lisa. Oh, she's up there in the mountains in the northeast. Can't remember what the mountain range is called up there. Oh yeah, I got a bunch of that. My bubblers. It's another good way to kill them. Use airlocks, man. That's basically the same thing, right? Use airlocks. They'll kill them damn critters. What's going on, Dale? Good to see you, brother. Miss you too, brother. Hey, you got to take care of business and take care of things, man. We'll be here anytime you are, man. Anytime you're ready, we're going to try to be here every Tuesday and Saturday. The good Lord's willing, the creeks don't rise and He don't spit ice on us too much. Hopefully, we'll be able to be here Tuesday. That's going to be I was worried about today, but I think Tuesday is going to be the toughest day because we're going to have a lot of ice coming in through here and really, really low temps in. So hopefully that'll change. But it's good seeing you, Dale. Hope things down there, I guess they're a little warmer down there than here. What's going on, Mr. Gary Perry? Doing good, brother. Awesome, man. That's what we love to hear, man. I like to taste those results too, so don't forget me next time. We have festivals now. Got to come to festivals and bring your brag. 5 there. Brr. Pretty cold out there, man. I've seen them do that before, man. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Hey, in a tough pinch, that'll keep you alive, like in a car or something. Sitting have 2 feet. That's nothing for you all, though, man. That's into the tail. Awesome. Hey, I tell you what, in a car, they can keep you alive, man. Yeah, a 5 gallon steel's fine. It's just really tough to make cuts on. Anton, I'm glad you asked. Looking at the Bevers, you can go to a 10, and you can still, if you're planning on doing it on the stovetop, which a lot of people like to do with these Bevers and stuff because they're pretty much suited for that. They're basically stovetop type pots, but you can run them on turkey fryers and everything else outside with your propane. But it's not a whole lot of difference in price, between a 5 and a 10 gallon. Something like 129 or 159. That $30 will mean so much over a long period of time, and it'll be a much more enjoyable hobby for you, and you'll make better cuts. It's just easier to make cuts with a larger steel, and it's more rewarding because you're going through the same process to do a 5 and a 10, and it doesn't take that much longer or that much more cost to do corn for a 10 versus a 5. And if you're going to do it all while you're at it, might as well get some more reward out of it. So you got a 5 gallon, and then you're only going to be able to run about 3 out of it. In which case you're going to get about a couple few quarts of liquor, and it's just not going to be as rewarding as running 10 or 15 gallons, and you can get a gallon or a couple gallons of distillate, right? So um, it's fine. If you've already got it, it's all's not lost. Worst things have happened. But if you haven't bought it yet, I highly recommend saving a little longer and getting a little bit bigger pot to start with, because I just hate it because every time, I've seen it over the years countless times. People, times are tough, and not everybody can afford a bigger steel, right? But I don't know how many times I've seen somebody buy a 5 gallon steel, and then a couple of months later it's like, damn it, I didn't get a big enough steel. Now I'm gonna have to spend another 150, and 60 now. What can I do with the 5 gallon pot? And a lot of times those 5 gallon pots become thumpers, and and that's not that's not a bad thing, right? So if you do get the 5, it's just you just realize now that that's going to become a thumper for you by in the next year or two. It's because once you get into the hobby and you enjoy it and you see how easy it is and enjoyable it is and rewarding it is, you're going to be like, well, damn, I've got to have a bigger pot. This is a lot of work, and I'm not getting enough liquor out of it to really make it worth my while. And so let's graduate. Let's go ahead and get that bigger pot. And it's better just to start out bigger, and it's easy to make your cuts. When you got such a small amount coming out, those cuts become even smaller, and your catch jars become even smaller, and it's really tough a lot of times. It's to differentiate, because there is so little being coming out. So it's an okay starter, but I would definitely recommend going to a 10 or a 13, and the football. Let me show you a picture of the football still. Uh, we push those, or a keg. You can use a keg, and 15-gallon keg, you can get it for $35. It's a lot cheaper than these 5 gallon Bevers. And you can get I'll show you a picture also of a little column that you can buy, and they're about 130, $150. if you're going to spend that, that's basically what these 5 gallon pots are, around 120 bucks. So instead of that, you can get you a keg, and you can slap. Let me pull up my pictures here. All right, let's start with this. This is the Vever football still. All right, this comes 10, 13, 18 and a half gallon sizes. Perfect pot. About $230 for a 18 and a half gallon. If you can afford it, I highly recommend you going with this, because if you get this, you won't need to upgrade for a long time, if ever, because 18 and a half, you can ferment 15 gallons. You can get 2.5 to 3 gallons off of it, liquor and proofed liquor and cut liquor, and that's pretty good, right? And that's a good hobby size. Some people, anything under 30 to 40 is considered hobby size, right? That's getting to the upper limits of the hobby. This kind of right in the middle. It's 18 and a half. You can run 15, and you can get, it's a great little starter pot. And if you start with this, you may never need to upgrade again. This may fit your needs for now until ever. Some people, really get the bug and get the flu and the fever for it, and they have to go big, and then start filling up little barrels, right? But yeah, this is around 230, and it's complete. Everything here you need to get going, complete. You can literally buy this and only this and start distilling with it. Whereas if you get a keg, you're going to have to get you a little column to come off the keg, or a little cap. Feel willing to make the caps, or you can buy the columns. Either way works real well. Here you go. You can get these little columns. I think Phil probably carries them. eBay, Amazon, a lot of different places has them. They work fine, and you can put this right on a keg and work. And so you'll have about $40 into the keg, 130 or 40 into this, so about 170, 80 into this. A little bit cheaper than the Vever, but this is going to be a 15-gallon pot that you're going to be running 13 gallons in versus 15. So a little bit less, but it's just if you're going to invest it, probably be best just to go, get something that you're going to be comfortable with. And but the one thing about the kegs, you're not able to run those on the stove. Now, when we talk about stovetop running, not all stoves are good enough to run liquor on. What you need to do, boil some water and watch your stove when you turn it up to full, or 80% full to full. Look at your element, see if it's kicking on and off. If it does kick on and off, probably not the best for distilling on. If it stays on, no matter what temp, between 3/4 and full blast, if it stays on, it just changes the temperature, then it'll probably be suited just fine for making it. So you don't want the ones that are thermostatically kicking on and off. You want ones that adjust the heat to the element and are more constant. So different type stove. My old stove does great. It's works fine for that. And during the winter time, you can bring it inside and do it. It's fine. Got to be real careful though when you're in your home and you're distilling alcohol. You need to be very, very diligent. Don't drink, and don't get drunk while you're sitting there doing it, because a lot of fires have resulted. You don't want to burn your house down, with your hobby. And there are dangers involved. So at the same time you buy the steel, I recommend, if you're going to do it inside, get a fire extinguisher that's rated for alcohol and gas. Yeah, I wouldn't go less than 10 though, Anton. And I hope you hadn't already got it. But if not, yeah. And again, Clint, yep. Yeah, everybody that I've seen over the years, they start out with a 5, and the next thing you know, yeah, time to get a bigger pot. what am I going to do with this 5? And we teach them how to make a thumper out of it. So if you already got the 5, don't worry. You know, you can use it and get in the hobby and get addicted. And then the next thing you know, you'll be asking, how do I convert my 5-gallon pot to a thumper? But yeah. 15 down there in Arkansas. Damn. No, it's different. You know, Miss Lisa and all them, that you know, they're built for it up there. Down the south, man, we're not ready for it. We're in here in Kentucky, we get a mix, but down there in Mississippi and Arkansas and Alabama and Georgia, they're not so in Florida, they're in Texas, Louisiana, they're not so used to it down that Gulf Coast. Well, I mean, and two, learning to make cuts on a 3-gallon still made you an expert. It's really tough. So, it's so much easier to do it there's so much more forgiving on a bigger steel. It's really tight on a 3-gallon pot. I don't go outside unless I have to. Don't go outside unless I have to, man. But I don't know if I do. I'm bundled in, I guess, sweats, thermals, and sweats with the parka type coat. Yeah, yeah, you'll save money. It's we've seen it so many times. I've seen it so many times in the past 10 years or so. It's definitely save you some money because really, to get the bigger pot, it's just $30-$40 more, right? And that may seem like a lot now, but in 6 months, instead of the 30-40, now you're spending the 160-80, getting the bigger pot where you could have just started with it, and it's probably gonna cost you a couple $100 if you go with the keg, $40 for the keg, 130, 40, 50 for the you know the column, or if you get a cap, a little bit more than that, if you get a copper head put on it, from Phil Billy or some of the other, steel builders. If you get on the militia page or DIY Shining Stuff page, and there's a bunch of builders and stuff that'll advertise on there and ask on there, and we can definitely give you a good list of reputable builders, that I'm friends with. That's why I don't mention any names other than Phil. Do Phil, because he helped sponsor this, and he's head of the militia. But there's so many, but there, I do have a lot of friends, and I don't want to start mentioning names because inevitably I'm going to forget one of them, and I don't want to sit here and spend the next 5 minutes naming everybody. But get on there and ask around, and people that have bought from them, in the past and stuff, they'll know. And these are people who are not going to shaft you, because if we've had some in the past that have been reputable, and then all of a sudden just couldn't keep up with things, and just kind of didn't follow through and kept taking money, so we put them to the wayside. We're not going to let you take advantage of family, if you're not going to develop, send out the product, don't take the money, you know. And you know, a lot of them are behind, which is understandable. But if you know, don't give up communication and stuff. So some of them do, you know, some of them fall a little bit behind and they don't talk and they don't tell you, oh well, you know, it's going to be a little longer. So I'm getting kind of ornery and testy when people keep asking them questions. And you know, I can understand both sides. You know, you sent somebody thousands of dollars, couple $1,000 to build you a copper steel. You know, I'd have some questions too if it was 6 months late, right? But yeah, so ask around. We'll steer you to the people that are going to take care of you. You won't do you wrong, and if they do, they won't be around long. Where can I get a bigger stainless pot? I know they're expensive, but doing grains in 20 to 25 just isn't big enough. Yeah, I know the feeling. And you got to get on Marketplace. You know, there's a lot of like big, huge stainless milk type cans. Um, got to get creative. There's a lot of stainless vessels that can be converted easily with a drill, you know, and putting some elements into it, you know, putting those 2-inch ferrules in them, weld them into the sides and cutting it in. Uh, just got to look at Marketplace. Buddy of mine, man, he's the luckiest guy in the world. He's out there in California, and he gets on there, man, and he I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, probably not, but he finds some of the best deals. He just recently got some 1-inch copper, soft copper tubing, uh, and made a big, huge worm out of it. And he also got a big, like a 50-gallon stainless uh, tank for next to like 50, $60. And they got a nice stainless fermenter, you know, with conical bottom and everything, and stand for $40. I mean, he finds these deals, and he's out there in Cali, so he just gets on the internet, and I guess on Marketplace and local, you know, for sale stuff and wheels and deals. Yeah, yeah, I already know who built that. That's awesome, bro. But yeah, it's yeah, there are a lot of people out there that are building them stainless. There's not so many. I will say earlier tonight I was talking about Wayne and Amanda on the show, and Wayne's a hell of a builder. You know, I'm not sure if I haven't looked at his prices and stuff, but Wayne has been a fabricator a lot of his life. He's a tool maker, fabricator. That's what his dad did. It's what he does. His family, you know, been doing that for ages. Got a shop, um, top notch fabricator. I say it's probably an insult to call him fabricator. He's an artisan. You know, it's more of an art. With Wayne. He suffers from OCD. He doesn't realize it, but he's a perfectionist, and every little detail has to be crossed and dotted. You know, and so when you cross the two, you know, get a perfectionist like that, you know, you're really getting some top notch stuff. I mean, his uh, build quality is just it can't be beat. A lot of his stuff he gets, you know, like the funnels and a lot of the stuff that's butt welded. I mean, you sit there, you know, he's talking about dovetails and stuff, and you're looking for him, and he's like, "Where are they?" You know, it's done so well that he just polishes it, and you can't even see the joints. You know, everybody else you see slaughter splatter or weld splatter and everything else, and discoloration, all this. With Wayne's, I mean, you literally have to get the old magnifying glass out just to find the seams, right? He's that good. But you know, he's one of the few that works with the stainless and makes some stainless pots. Does a great job. Most everybody else just hammers out copper and solders it because they don't have the skill set to do the stainless like that, or the equipment. But yeah, or some people just there's 50-gallon stainless, 55-gallon stainless drums out there, right? That you can just buy these stainless drums. If you want to get a 50-gallon, there's a lot of that. And you can take some sheet stainless and formulate, a cap on it or a cape on top of that if you want to. I mean, you could come straight out of the top and into a column, just put a ferrule on the top of it, and I'd probably go 4 or 6 inch, so you can get down in there and clean it if you want to. Put a drain in it, a few elements in the bottom, a few ferrules in the sides to run the electric too. But yeah, you can get you 50-gallon drums, and they're like 250 to 350, for just a stainless drum. Now there's what you want to look for is some that says sanitary, and they'll say a sanitary drum. What they mean by sanitary is in the bottom corners they're rounded instead of going to a corner like in a regular soup can. It's a rounded bottom, so it doesn't have that spot for things to build up and get. It's easy to clean, and you don't have that spot where things get built up. But a lot of people using some of these big 50, 55 stainless drums. But again, 250, 350. I think you can place out of Ohio that has them. I think Philbilly's got them. As a matter of fact, Philbilly, if he doesn't have them, he can get them. I know he can get them. If he doesn't have them, he probably has some. So get up with Phil. But yeah, but for the most part, stainless. If That's about the only place I know of that Wayne's the only person I know that's making them. Not sure. I don't think Tracy's making them, but I think Wayne's the only person I know of right now. I don't think Peterman and them's building them, and I know Jason Wade and all them. Most everybody's using copper. It's just easier to work with and easier to solder, and you don't have to have a TIG welder and all that equipment to make it with. Yeah, before you started, you didn't have us to ask, right? Yeah, having that good nose and that good palate, man, is key. Mine's not the best. I'm not the best, as far as tasting stuff and picking up notes of all these floral notes and all these stuff. I'm not the best. Picking up almonds and all this stuff, and I'm just not the best at that. Especially post COVID. Lost a lot of taste and stuff, but did gain a lot after I quit smoking though. So if you're a smoker, it's going to definitely have an impact on it versus if you don't, you probably have a little better palate and be able to taste notes better. Roof raking, that's just crazy. I see these videos of them doing it now, man. They're up there putting these long poles and pulling it. Big avalanche falls right on them. It's funny. What's going on, Michael? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind as usual. About 30 minutes always. Hope y'all staying warm. Yeah, grains will generally take 3 to 5 days if all your you know uh, everything, all your variables are right. If you got everything tuned in and everything's right where you want them. Wine you want to slow ferment. You actually fermenting at a lower temperature and over a longer period of time, and it's preferable. And technically, fructose will yeast will consume those a little bit slower than they do a glucose molecule. So that's another factor, and takes a little bit longer. But generally, it's because of the temperature and the yeast that you're using is geared towards a lower temperature, and you really want to ferment your wine slower. Yeah, well, with winemaking, you actually add the acid in it. We've got what's called an acid blend, and it's got citric, tartaric, and malic acid. And some people just use citric, but I use the winemaker's blend that has the three. And yeah, it adds for your tartness and bitterness of the wine, and to get the pH where you want it. Generally, your pH is going to be lower in a wine than it's going to be in your grain or your sugar wash. Yep. Awesome. It's awesome. Be careful. And I hope you're going to do it in little bits. 100 gallons is a lot of weight. So hopefully you're going to break it down into 5-gallon buckets or something a little more manageable to carry if you don't have a forklift, because 100 gallons is a lot of weight. If, 700 or 800 pounds, a lot of weight. Yeah. So you insulating? That works. I just put my little heater in them. I don't even insulate the fermenters or nothing. I've got a fermented insulator or an insulated fermenter, but I use that for when I'm steeping, right? Yeah. Well, you gotta learn that hickorbilly too, man. I speak a hickorbilly accent. They do. They did a study on Eastern Kentucky and not just Eastern Kentucky, but that general area in Appalachia where I grew up, and we basically use an older English from, I guess, the olden days. Where we use words like yonder and holler, and there's a lot of words that we use that have kind of gotten lost in the English language, more modern English, that and there's books written about it, but pretty interesting how we've kind of maintained that, being sheltered in in the mountains there, and not have the influence of a lot of change. Well, a year or two. I mean, I think they'll last longer, but they just keep losing efficacy, Dale. So over time, you may lose 20, 25% over a year, like Clint was talking about earlier. And after a couple of years, it may be close to 50. So you may have to use more. Um, but yeah, you definitely want to use them, kind of use them or lose them kind of thing. But keep them refrigerated for sure, and you'll definitely get much, much more longevity out of them. But I would say, I'm going to Google it, but I'm not sure, 3 to 5 years. That'd be a great question to ask Alan or Patrick Heist. I'd love to get Patrick on and ask him some stuff. I may try to drive down there and get a time where I can talk to him someday when he's not busy. If that's, I don't know if that's ever. Yeah, well, a couple of years. If you're refrigerated, a couple of years. I would say a couple of few years. But just remember, after a year, like Clint's talking about, you're gonna have to use a little bit more. After a couple of years, you're gonna have to use maybe almost twice as much, and then after a few years, you may be using, three times more. But I would say, definitely want to use them. Get some napping action going on. Yeah, I think, yeah, he's still in business. I think, I'm not sure, but he may be supplying North Georgia now. I don't know. But yeah, old Prohibition just had a birthday the other day too. But yeah, yeah, that's who mine have all come from him. I think Phil's got them. North Georgia has them. Prohibition has them, and also trying to think. I'm not sure of any of my other buddies. I'm not sure if Tracy carries them or not, or any of the other guys. But Firm Solutions also, somebody mentioned them earlier. They use the Firm Solutions, and that's Wilderness Trail and Patrick Heiss I was talking about earlier. Alan referred to him as well. Probably one of the most knowledgeable, all around knowledgeable person in just the science of distillation and practical knowledge, probably that there is. Definitely in the top five, probably in the world. Old country boy from Kentucky, but probably one of the most knowledgeable people. Definitely top five most knowledgeable people in general, in science and knowledge about in depth that there is. Runs Wilderness Trail Distillery. Probably is a top 10 bourbon maker in the world, top 10 producer of bourbon in the world. Runs Firm Solutions, owns it, Firm Solutions. So, and I've heard him speak on several occasions. Dude definitely knows his stuff. Probably most knowledgeable, person. I definitely want to get to know. They're hunkered down, brother. Hunkered down. Yeah, so am I a little bit. Got to, man. Stay warm. Saturday night. Time to party a little bit. Have to watch what I drink, man. Anymore, I drink his high proof stuff and I get thrush, man. It kills all the bacteria in my mouth. And next thing you know, I start to get thrush built up and get a white tongue from it. I'm going to have to kiss Miss Santa a little bit more and get her bacteria in my mouth. You hear that? She must have her headphones on. She's listening to her show over there with her headphones on. So I want to watch this old Patty the Batty fight. That's probably about to happen here before too long. Might have to get off here before too long and see what happens. Not many on YouTube. We got about 20, 25 fluctuating here. Most people, I don't know. I guess it's this weather. Everybody's kind of hunkered down, and some people. Yeah, yeah. He does some napping. What Mike does. But yeah, I'd say a lot of people are hunkered down, preparing for the weather, and insulating their pipes and doing a lot of things, shoveling snow and snuggling up with their honeys. It's Saturday night too. I don't see the numbers on the YouTube because I'm just looking at this from my StreamYard, and it just shows the Facebook numbers. It doesn't give me the it just shows me the Facebook numbers from the one page. So, we do know that there's many, many more watching, and then we'll watch. We'll probably get about 7, maybe 8% watching tonight live, and then 92% watching over the next week. And definitely on, like tonight, you're going to have a lot more people picking us up tomorrow or during the week, and they get snowed in, they might listen to us. Good question, Mike. Yeah, you definitely want to start out at 5.4, do your conversions, and add regardless of what you're doing, add those oyster shells in there, and you won't have to worry about it. But yeah, 4.8. That's not a problem. Not a problem at all. 4. If it's down to 4, I'd definitely throw in the oyster shells when it's pitching yeast time. If it's 4, I'd definitely throw the oyster shells in there just to keep it from getting to be a problem. But again, oh, you're using oh, okay. So it with the yellow label. Oh, Angel red label. Okay, good. I was going to say with the yellow label, you don't have to cook with this red label. Okay, good deal. Yeah, I would just throw in the oyster shells, and just as a little extra, and I mean, when you get them out, you can rinse and reuse them. It's not, like you just throw them in the garbage after you're done. You can rinse them out, boil them, and reuse them as many times as you want to till they're just dissolved to nothing, and just keep adding to your pouch, just cheesecloth pouch or a little brew bag. Um, but yeah, I would highly recommend getting, if you haven't, they've got them at the feed stores. They're used for chickens, to help supplement the chickens' calcium, uptake to keep their shells good and hard for shipping, help keep reduce broken eggs. And it's also good to, the powder that's in the bottom. If you plant vegetables and stuff, you can add that to your soil and help your tomatoes and peppers and other plants that that need it. Yeah, 1118, 1116, a little bit different. They're different yeast, but both really good yeast. A lot of people they don't like the 1118 because it's a champagne yeast, right? And it's a floral yeast. It has the floral notes, and it's kind of a delicate floral note that it adds, but it does have such great tolerances, and it's really good at stuck fermentations, and it's good because it does have can handle large ranges. Probably it's definitely not the best yeast for anything. It's not the best. It's not a recommended yeast for anything, even champagne. But it is probably in the top 10 for everything, right? So it's the best at nothing, and it's good for everything. So it's if you're going to buy one yeast, it's good to have on it. It'd be the one to buy. If you were just going to buy one yeast and do a bunch of different things, it would be the one you wanted to buy. If you're going to buy one yeast and do one specific type, it's not the one that you want. If you're going to make brandy, it's not the one you want. If you're going to make whiskey, it's not the one you want. But if you're going to make a lot of different things and you're just going to buy one yeast, it's a good candidate, for that one yeast to be that one. Yeah, it gives some floral notes. Yeah, EC 1118 definitely gives some, and I'd say the 1116 probably as well. Yeah, you definitely want to have a fan going and vents going, and we have gas heat. And one of the big things, though, most people don't realize is we have a lot of gas heaters, and I've seen wall heaters. They don't have vents, there's no ventilation, there's no fun, there's no chimneys for those, and a lot of those in East Kentucky. The key for using propane indoors is A, ventilation, but B, tuning your burners properly. If you have a lot of yellow flames, it's not tuned properly. It's dangerous. You're going to create a lot of carbon monoxide. If it's very blue with just little yellow at the very top tip, then that's kind of the way you want to tune it, and that's the way it needs to be tuned. It's just a little tiny bit of yellow at the very top of the flame. And if it's not finely tuned properly enough, the more yellow you get, the more soot and carbon monoxide you're going to get coming off that. So most of these vents have a little, dial on the back of them that you can add and take out oxygen that comes in through the back, and you need to adjust them properly. Yeah, I'm hoping we don't lose power, because they're talking about we're going to get a lot of snow, Chris. Now they're saying maybe ice instead. So it's not going to be so bad. You're not going to get 2 foot of snow. It's just going to be maybe 1 foot of snow with ice. And yeah, that's not good. So who knows? It's totally changed though. Yeah, the red label is different. Let me look it up. It's not the yellow label that does the conversion on its own. That's got the Allen. We talked about that. It's got some kind of Koji clone. Um, the red label is the AG2. See what it says about it here. That's yellow. That's yellow. Most of this is yellow on Amazon. Let's see. Let me find a better source. Let me go to the horse's mouth here. Angel red. Yeah, so they're distillers yeast. Yeah. So it's kind of their version of Datey. Yeah, it likes warmer temperatures. Yeah, it likes it in the mid 80s. So yeah, 80 up to 108, but I would definitely never go that high. But 80s, mid to upper 80s will be perfect for that. And let's see, the alcohol tolerances is 17 to 18, about that of a it's very common. This is a lot like a Datey, but actually it'll maybe a little higher. But I do want to talk, maybe have a little episode about, and we were talking about last night about yeast and yeast propagation and stuff. And I know Alan, he touched on it a little bit, and it's something that he has a passion for, and I noticed a lot of people talking about the Cavex, or the Quebec yeast. That's an expensive yeast. It's a very expensive yeast, and 50 500 gram brick. Like most of the yeast we spend is 25-30 bucks, right? This is $100-200, so it's very expensive. So this is definitely a yeast that you're going to want to learn to propagate and make yeast logs and do that kind of thing with, because it's very expensive yeast. That Voss is expensive stuff that Clint keeps talking about. So you're definitely going to have to learn to propagate your yeast when you start dealing with the Cavex, for sure. I am sipping on some honey liquor that Mike gave me. Him and his fiance came and visited us. He and his fiance and Ann and I went all out and went out to dinner. Nice. Yeah, let me show it. If I get it up. I don't know if it's cable long enough for me to reach over here for everybody to see it. I showed it last time. Let's see. Everybody can see this from there. Yeah, it reaches. Check it out. It's hard to tell the color though, but that corner's yellow and it's green. Pretty cool little light box in it. Appreciate that, brother. It's nice, man. I can't wait to get that set up. When I get my new PC built, I think about putting it inside there to show of my gaming rig, but I don't know if I'll have room for it. But that'd be pretty cool because it's got two sides of glass. It's one of those gaming rigs that kind of have the glass front, the glass side to showcase all the lights inside and all this stuff. I kind of went all out. And I thought that'd be pretty cool inside there. If I can make it fit, I'll do it. Kind of plug the militia a little bit and I show it off. I appreciate it, brother. So that was exclusive. Only 3 in the world. Me and Frank and Phil. Only one's got it. Yeah, it's nice, man. Central Appalachia's the best, though. Gets too cold up there, releases. Damn, it's too cold. Yeah, well, it's time to make some shine now. Definitely getting time to make the shine. Save up. Yeah, that's true. My first gun was a 12 gauge. Yeah, my first gun, it got stolen when I was in college. I know who took it too. But yeah, my first gun was an over-under shotgun from Sears and Roebuck's, Ted Williams Special, made by Browning. It was a pretty valuable gun, and I kept it in good shape. And got stolen in college. For some people I know who took it. Hated losing that old gun. I got that when I was 12 years old. But I had shotgun. I have shotguns before that. So yeah, 22 was what I started at, but my technical first gun was a shotgun. I learned to shoot on my uncle's Marlin 22 bolt action. It was I've still got that very, very accurate rifle, but I don't know what happened to it over time. That trigger wore down, and it's like if you bolt it too hard, it'll go off, right? It's dangerous. So I got to take it apart and file that trigger down and make it fix that notch. No, I mean, and actually, if you're going to get the footballs now, is probably a good time to get it because it seems like the prices are going up on them. Back I looked on eBay, and now, back in the day, prices varied from 220 to 260. Right now, it's like 230 to 300 and something. So on average, the prices are sneaking up a little bit. So shop around a little bit on eBay, and you should be able to find that bever, or catch it on sale. Sign up, go to thebever.com and sign up if you ever buy anything from them on their website. They got some great deals on chainsaws right now for those that um, are interested in saw. And I know a lot of saw people that are kind of really into the saws and stuff. They'll scoff at it and say it's the worst. But for a hobbyist and for somebody that just needs a saw to trim with a few times a year and don't do it for a living, yeah, it's going to fit their bill. If it's something that you do for a living, or you're a big collector and saw aficionado and into the old stuff and steels and McCullochs and echoes of the past, you probably won't. I've got a nice echo and Paul, what is it? What is that other one? The Farmhand, Poland. Took me a while to remember that. Man, my mind, the memory's going. That little keg and column setup ain't bad. If you can get a keg for nothing, and a lot of people can find them for nothing, make sure they're stainless. Don't get one of the old type, aluminum ones. They're still kind of hanging around. Some people use them for gas tanks on their hot rods and other things, and bucket cars and all the other things. But make sure you got a modern stainless one, and those little columns that I was showing you work great. They're fine. You know, 33-gallon stainless barrel. Awesome. Yeah, that's a great size, man. I mean, 30 to 40, even sneaking into 50s, for hobbyists, getting out of the realm. If you want to distill every weekend, stick with a 10 or a 15, and you'll be working more often. If you would rather just do it once a month and make all your liquor at once, maybe having a little bit bigger one works. It's according to what you want and how often you want to do it, what kind of time you got. Time's money, and you can love the hobby and be still like, I love it. But I like turning out, 5 or 10 gallons of liquor at a time. I don't want to piddle foot around and have to run every week to keep me and my friends happy, because once you start making that liquor, you'll see you get closer friends, man. They'll be a lot close to you. They'll visit more often. It is. It's tough to make the cuts. Oh well, now the column I'm talking about, JJ, is this thing right here. And that's a 2-inch column. It's not a big bubble plate column. You put your copper mesh inside the the spools. Don't do that with small copper. For those that are watching, you don't want to do that. This is 1.5 inch, 2-inch copper. This is 2-inch tubing right here. These come in twos. This particular one is, and you don't wind that copper is not real tightly wound. It's not restrictive. Do not try to put that 1/2 inch, 5/8 or 1 inch. 1 inch possibly. Anything less than an inch, do not put that in there to try to pull out sulfites. But yeah, these are like 130, $40. Put them on a keg and you'll get 100. Wait, I mean, with the deflagmator on there, it's got a deflagmator, so you can adjust the temperature of the water going into your deflagmator. and you can kind of dial your proof in to a certain point, and they work pretty well. But yeah, if you're talking about a big, huge, 4-inch column, like the one I just got, yeah, those are going to be considerably more. I think mine was like 250. So yeah, it's about the same price as the as the Vevor. Yeah, definitely keep fire extinguisher. Definitely. My old buddy Phil, Marfugal Phil, he had an accident in his bar and garage, and went out, smoked a cigarette, came back, and his damn ceiling was on fire. Man, his steel had gone up, and he had a fire extinguisher, and that saved him. Might have saved him and his house both. Well, not him; he got out, but the house, you know. So absolutely, and they do happen, especially if you go out and smoke or if you're drinking while you're doing it and get a little lax. And it's easy to do. You get into it. You do it once a week, couple times, a few times a month. It's always the same. Boom, 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 get it done. So you kind of get a little bit lax, and when you do, it's when something happens. Oh yeah, we went to the grocery store today. Man, I've never seen those shelves so bare in my life. Man, it was unbelievable. And I don't think that's just from shopping. I think they're getting less deliveries in right now too. But yeah, especially in the fruits and vegetables. That's the least I've seen at that one particular store ever. Yeah, most of my family, predominant, all my family is Scotch, Irish, some German, some English, but mostly Scotch and Irish. Imagine that, the ginger. But yeah, the Calls and Greers and the Scots came from Ireland and Scotland. Justice came from England. Stones came from Germany. That's my family tree. McCoys too. Yeah, my grandmother's McCoy. One of the feuding McCoys that you've heard about. Yeah, that's my family. That was my grandmother's on my dad's side's family. She was born right after it, and she's a direct descendant. Yeah, the fighting McCoys, Hatfield McCoys. Yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Damn, I can't stay on time. I'm scrolling as fast as I can. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got some 55 gallons. I think I saw one outfit. I think had them for like $250, $300, but they weren't sanitary, and I think they were dented. I think these were like um, new, but seconds, and they couldn't be used, so they were like $250, $300. Generally, I think they're like four or $500, which isn't bad for that size. If you want to steel, compare that to what a 55 copper would cost you. Yeah, cheap. Yep. You just talk to him. I mean, Wayne can make you the Mr. Fusion, deflagrator heads. He can make you anything you want. JJ, him like most anybody else. They, may not list specific things on their site, but if you got something that you want, you can draw it out or tell him, and he'll picture it and agree. I definitely want to draw it out so you're on the same page. But he can make anything you want. Yeah, it is, man. He does a good job. He's an artesian for sure, and I'm way behind. Good to see you, Wimmy. Yeah, it would be awesome. Definitely would be awesome. That might be what caused mine. I mean, I don't know how many concussions I had. And I played football on concussions, man. I had a car wreck and was in a concussion and played football. I couldn't even remember my plays, man. My buddy quarterback Rogerdale had to tell me where to go every play. I wasn't even half my mind, man. Had an okay game, decent game, but crazy things we do. That's a dumb thing to do. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you definitely want it to burn clean. You got to keep it adjusted. I'm that far behind. I'm trying to catch up though. I didn't see $13 bags. I saw 500 grand or the 500 gram bricks for like $199. Man, that's at Voss Quebec East, Quebec, whatever. Yeah, that's that's quite expensive. That's like 8 times more than I'm used to paying. I buy $20, 15, 20, $25 bricks. Damn, $200. Yeah, you definitely want to make your yeast log and propagate it for sure. You got your radiator flush. Time to top her off again, huh? Oh, I do need to add some in my car. I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know though. Having a little bit low make it warm up faster. Won't it? Oh, I understand. Yeah, I definitely get the football if you can afford it. That's a good little pot. A lot of people knock it. Most of the people knock it, or I'll just be flat out blunt. Most of the people that knock the beverage stills are they fit into several categories. One category is they hate it because it's from China and they hate everything from China. And I can understand that. China's a competitor, they're communist, they, killing us with fentanyl and other things with chemical warfare. Um, but the people there ain't all bad, but um, their leaders aren't very good people. So it's either, you got your China haters that just, it's from China, forget it. But they don't realize most all the stainless comes from China. Unless Wayne's fabricating it, most everything else comes from China, right? So all your oak steel and all that stuff's coming from China. The Denord and all your stuff that's coming from China. So you got that. Then two, you got the people that paid, for a 20-gallon steel or a 15-gallon steel, they paid $1,200-$1,500 plus to buy copper, right? And it pisses them off to know that they could have just bought a $230 bever, used some copper mesh, and gotten pretty close to what they have with a lot less maintenance. I'm not saying copper is inferior. No, copper is definitely still the superior um, pot to use, but it's lost some of its appeal now that we can use mesh, because that was part of the appeal, is that it removed these sulfites and gave a better flavor. So now that we know we can just add that mesh and get rid of that, the sulfites, and get that flavor or that bad flavor out, or off flavor out. Some people kind of consider it a good flavor for certain things. But now that we know we can get that out with some mesh, they're like they're kind of pissed, you know. So that's the two schools generally that hate the bevers. But if you just use it and look at it for what it is, I mean, any little home shiner back in the day would have loved to have that, little stainless pot. As far as a moonshiner that was trying to make money back in the day, no, they wouldn't have dealt with that. It's too small. But for a hobbyist, it's an excellent little pot. Not gonna lie. Yeah, yeah, they did. Yeah, they and if they would have just kept up, instead of magazine sales, they could have been an online retailer now, right? Like Amazon, because they had a few stores, but a lot of it dealt with magazines, ordering from the catalog, which basically ordered from online, right? You can't go to an Amazon store, but at least Sears had some stores that you could go to, but had big, huge catalogs you could get anything from. Yeah, man, I remember looking through the wish book every Christmas, picking out what I wanted. Sears sent out a little wish book for Christmas, and it's Toys R Us. Basically had everything in there, all kinds of everything. Man, it was big, but yeah, it's mismanaged for sure, and didn't adjust with the times, and kind of like some of us old shiners, we don't adjust to the times, and you can become obsolete if you can't learn new techniques and adjust to the new technologies, and you just get stale and stagnant, running doing the same old, same old. Yep, absolutely. Or you can just go hang out with a college fraternity and after the party's over, and I don't know what happened with that keg. No, I wouldn't do that. But you probably find it laying out in their yard or something. But yeah, you can get them cheap. Marketplace, you can pick them up 35, $40. It seems like every time I look, they're always in Ohio or Tennessee. It's like as many college towns. I'm in a college town and you can't find any here. It's crazy. But yeah, if you know somebody that owns a bar, you can pick one up pretty cheap. They have a low deposit and you know. And Fibbley's got cakes too. And he's got somebody that welds the ferrules and everything in on the side for the elements, and he can put drains in them, 6 inch on, openings, ferrules on the top, and save you some time and money because if you're going to run on electric, it's going to cost you to have it cut and welded, and that's not cheap. But Philby has kegs. Yep. Yeah, Maria McCoy. Yeah, my grandmother was a McCoy, her maiden name. Hey, they're not knocking it, bro. Hey, it gets you in the game. I'm just eight gallons better than the fives. And pretty close to 10. And you got to start somewhere. I'm not knocking it at all. Don't misinterpret what I say. If I can get to someone before they purchase, then I'm going to recommend the 10 or something a little bit larger. And I'm going to recommend the football instead of the 3-pot. Now, if you've been using it, you've had it for a year now, so a year and a half. So you probably cracked one of the gaskets on the top, where they tie in, and that was one of the things. The size of the pipes on the 3-pot type. And I'm not sure which kind you got, but if it was the 3-pot, they required a little bit of work to be done. It's still a good deal for the stainless pots that you get. It's just that the gaskets material on some of those fittings on the top, not the main gasket on the ring, but the little gaskets that for the fittings kind of broke, right? If you barely over tighten them, they'd crack on you every time. So those were kind of not the best. The plumbing was a little undersized, and the thumper and the worm sat right on top of the steel itself, where it's kind of hot, which is a horrible place for the worm to be. Okay for the thumper, but not a great place for the worm to be. And the worm, was a little bit undersized. I mean, you could use them and make liquor, and it works. I mean, it works fine. Once everything's tuned in, it works okay. But it's really one of the most difficult stills to run because that condenser is undersized, so you have to keep that water cooler than normal, and keep ice in there almost, and keep that really cold water going through it because it's undersized, and it's a struggle to make the good cuts. So once you get proficient at running that size steel, that smaller steel, when you upgrade, I mean, it'll be, oh my God, it'll become so much easier, right? And smoother running. So I'm not browbeating you or saying there's anything wrong with it, because we all got to start somewhere. I started with a fucking pressure cooker. Okay. So, that's definitely a step up from a pressure cooker with a top little, small little copper, tube coming off of it. So, I'm the last person that would ever, browbeat somebody's beginning steel. But if somebody is starting and they haven't purchased one yet and is asking for my advice, of course, I'm going to try to steer them towards a 10 plus, and just tell them to save up, take a little more time and save up a little bit more money. because in the long run, it's once you get into the hobby and stuff, it's going to be something that you're going to want to upgrade, because it's a lot of work. It's not easy. If it was just simple, is putting something in a microwave and turning the dial and hitting a button, everybody'd be doing it. So, but yeah, we're glad you're here, and we're here to answer any question that you want. And yeah, Eagle, just got your questions asking, brother. And we all started. I started, like I said, on a pressure cooker with thin mash. So I definitely ain't too proud to tell it. So you're definitely starting out better than I did. But barely learning, we can change that. We can help you. We can get you going, man, to where you can be making some good liquor. Damn it! Did I get caught up? Holy shit! I'm scrolling and reading, and I'm like, damn, it ain't going anymore. What's happening? And we still got everybody here. Damn, that's good. I'm gonna drink to that. I usually don't do that. Well, I guess it is almost 11. I'll say I usually don't do that till it's closing time. Yep. Time for a shot. But yeah, Eagle. Man, we're here for you, brother. We're here every Tuesday night and every Saturday night. I don't know if you've been listening and tuning in, but join DIY Shine and Still Building. Again, DIY Shine and Still Building on Facebook. And come in there and ask your questions. Also, in the file sections in there, I've got a how to, and it's basic steps on how to make your first corn liquor, right? So, and it's fully conversion. There's a few things you're going to have to buy, and we can go over that, and cover everything that you're going to need supply wise, and some of it's, most all of it's inexpensive, but they're tools, right? And it's, you got to have the right tools. So yeah, once you get ready to get serious, brother, we're there to help you. I can give you the exact steps, and if you can follow everything that I tell you to do, like a recipe, or just follow it like you would a chemistry experiment, or following a recipe to make spice up something and make some kind of food. If you can follow a recipe, you can do it. That's why sometimes women make good moonshiners, because they can cook, and that's what you're doing. You're cooking mash, and then you're cooking it off, right? So, some women, make some of the best shiners because they're used to cooking, and that's basically what you're doing, cooking and waiting, and cooking the mash, and then cooking the liquor off. So it's if you can follow just the basic instructions, and you get the tools, again, you're gonna have to get you some pH paper, take pH, and it's simple to do. You dip it in there and just match the color up, and wherever it's closest to, that's about what the pH is. It doesn't have to be exact, just ranges. um, have to get you a hydrometer, triple scale, to you know get the density and amount of sugars. So that's another tool that's a necessity. That's like $4 or $5. The pH paper is about 10 or $11, but you buy that once, you'll use it for years, as long as you keep it in a cool, dry, dark place, um, a drawer in the kitchen. But yeah, just have a few tools that you're going to need, and a big pot to boil stuff in, and get a big pot of boiling water. A big cooler helps, to steep your mashes and stuff in. Having a drill with a mud mixer, there's certain things that that make life much easier. Not a necessity, but yeah, man, we can get you to make a good freaking liquor for no doubt about it, brother. Just like Mike, buddy of mine, he's been at it a year and a half, and making good stuff. His corn liquor was great. This is good. Not as good as the corn liquor. I wish he'd sent me home with a corn liquor instead of this honey, but this honey's good. I've been drinking on it for a week, couple of weeks now, and hell, he's only been at it about a year and a half, and making good stuff. And there's a lot of people out there I've tasted, and man, it's amazing what you can learn, and you got good teachers here. We can get you going, brother. So again, DIY Shine and Steel Building on Facebook. Jump in there, and you don't, you can use an alias if you don't want to use your, regular name. You can use the same name that you're using here, and we know who you are. And nicknames are enabled on there now, so you can be somewhat anonymous. The admins will know who you are, but you know, me and Eric ain't we're the admins in there. We, we're both old school, and so definitely jump in there and ask you questions and enjoy the hobby, man. That's what we're here for. And with that, it's getting about that time. Yeah, flocculation is basically, uh, the yeast life cycle, basically the living and the dying yeast, and how much it flocculates. That's going to be your yeast bed in the bottom. The more flocculation, the more yeast bed that you're going to get, right? And some of your, wine yeast and stuff that you use is very low flocculation because it they don't want a big yeast bed, because that kind of ruins the flavor, if so to speak. So that's why you rack it off. That's why you only have it, on that yeast bed for, like, 5 to 7 days after primary fermentation, and you do secondary fermentation, and then third. So yeah, and yeah, so the higher flocculation will make a bigger yeast bed, right? And it makes it, it drops it down. Where some of the wine yeast is a little more milky, but they will clarify over time. Some people use egg whites. There's rice hulls. There's a lot of different things that you can do to help clarify it. Time will do that. Just months of letting it settle out. But yeah, it's but propagating yeast and learning to do that's something else that we can teach. Uh-oh. Got coons too. Yeah, man, I got a raccoon that eats my cat's food every night about the same time. I can't leave food out for it overnight. I got an outside cat, and it's not too happy right now, but he's got a little heated house I put out there for him. He's got a heated water bowl, and got every critter, every possum, coon, and animal coming to drink out of his bowl, because it's the only water you can drink right now. Everything else is frozen, so that's the watering hole. Take it easy, JJ. We'll see you Tuesday, brother. Yeah, you go join up the site and join in here every Tuesday and Wednesday, or every Tuesday and Saturday. I used to be on Wednesday when we moved to Tuesdays. And yeah, we can help you out, man. We can get you going and help you, with what tools to buy and all that good stuff, and give you some recipes and get you going. Right. All right, y'all. Well, I guess we're going to call it a night. It's 11 o'clock. It's been a great show. Had some good questions and some newcomers, and welcome all the newcomers, and stick with us. Bring us your questions. Now don't be ashamed to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. We all have the same questions. We all have, basically no understanding going into this. We're not born with this knowledge. We got to get it somehow. You've come to a good place. So bring us your questions. There's no stupid questions. Nobody's going to laugh at you, browbeat you, and say, "Oh, I can't believe it," because we were all there and we realized that we're all pretty cool people, and we don't tolerate that kind of attitude. So I've seen it in a lot of the Facebook groups, and a lot of guys, the same people that are browbeating and laughing and poking at people asked the same damn questions just a year or two ago when they started, right? So they've been at it a year or two and they're experts now. But that's what happens. We go from novice to expert after the first run here, it seems. But um, but it's funny, But at the same time, anybody that does that in the group, they're out. So we don't have it. We don't get that kind of We got a good sized group. Militia too, same way. That's why we created the militia, to get away from that kind of ridicule and belittling and that kind of people. There's one or two that still doesn't in there, and they're short lived. They won't be there long. Well, with that, everybody stay warm, and we will see you Tuesday, God willing, and my electric's working and my internet's still working. And so everybody stay warm and stay up on the weather and take care of family and everybody and all you animals outside. And we will see you all Tuesday. And thanks for tuning in. And until then, we'll see you then. Peace out. Shine on. Love y'all.